But to be with an audience is a privilege, that someone will stop in their life and listen to you because they're seeking something and they believe you might have it for them. That is what's foremost in my mind. I think that removes a lot of the glossophobia, they call it, the fear of public speaking.
Today with a phenomenal guest who has been a performer, dancer in the arts and ballet, and she's also a speaker and a coach, and we're super excited, and also a speaker trainer. So we have Maritza Coscarelli in the house. So welcome, Maritza.
Thank you so much, Wendy. This is exciting. I always love being with you. So I'm really honored to be with your guests as well.
Well, I want to jump right in and ask you about, because I invited you on the show today because I'm getting so many questions about going virtual as a speaker, as a coach, and even as a business owner, or, you own the sandwich shop down the street and now you're creating a video for your website. And I know that you've done a lot of training of speakers in the past. So let me ask you, back when you were a performer, was that like the first time you really developed a stage presence and learned how to be in front of a camera?
That's a really good question because it opens me up to a very short version of my story. I'll keep it really concise, but the thing is that I honestly believe, and you may too, that there are some gifts that we're born with, and we just tap into them differently in different stages of life. And so I loved when my parents would watch variety shows. I know I'm aging myself. They would watch, I don't know, the Ed Sullivan Show or whatever. And I was a little tyke. I have sisters like 7 years older, right? So I would get in front of the TV and dance and do the twist and whatever. So I had this idea of myself as a person who wanted to express themselves with my body, with my voice. However, when I went professional, it was a whole different entity of that, because then there are specific standards for specific curriculum, specific things you're trying to achieve, and you're at the whim and direction of others. And so it's this funny game between still expressing yourself freely and at the same time meeting the directors or the choreographers' needs. So that was a whole different iteration of it. But I really feel I was born to do this, but I do not believe that you have to be a natural to do it. It is a learned skill, even for a professional performer.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Were you initially, like when you would practice versus when you were being recorded or on stage in front of an audience, would you feel different? Would you start to get the butterflies in your stomach?
I didn't have a lot of stage fright, if that's what they call it. But I did have the butterflies in my stomach. And I will tell you a quick story. The time I didn't was the worst performance of my life. And I knew it in the wings. Like, the wings is, you're standing backstage and you're literally in the part where you're going to enter the stage. And you're, as a dancer, this was in a particular dance performance, you're counting the music, you're watching the person on stage, you're warming your body. All this is happening inside and outside of you at the same time. And I remember thinking, boy, I'm not at all excited or nervous, or there's no anticipation, almost like an apathy. And I was like, this is not going to be a good performance. And your thoughts become your reality. And because I sensed in my body, in my thoughts, in my energy that I wasn't on, I tell people who are afraid, this is a wonderful thing. Now focus on the task at hand and you'll get through the fear. But if you have no fear, it's the same in your body biologically as excitement. And so when you don't have anything going on, it can be a little disconcerting when you have to go out there in front of people. So I embraced the nerves or the butterflies or whatever I felt, that tingle, that excitement about going on,
When you would, so I'm just curious, so you'd go out there the way you used to spin and dance, in your own living room. Would you connect to the audience? Would you feel the presence of the audience there?
That's a great way to address that question, because you feel their energy, their presence. They hopefully feel yours, but there is a thing in acting and in dance and in all live theater, and it's called the fourth wall. Like right now, I'm breaking the fourth wall because I'm looking right at your audience. In a performance, if you're playing a role or in choreography, you might think a dancer is looking right at you. It only happens if it's deliberately in the piece. But otherwise, you were looking way back to the balcony or way to the right or left, and your eyes are alive as if I'm connecting to you, but I'm not really looking at you. But you do feel the energy of an audience for sure. Yeah, I still feel that though. I think the best speakers, like when you're in front of an audience giving a workshop, a talk, a speech, telling your story, I think you do feel a sense of them. I do, don't you?
Yeah,
Like
I
the energy in
absolutely
the room.
do. And I actually don't, I will make eye contact, that's with a live audience.
Yes, I
And
do
it's
that
so
now.
interesting because I shared with you earlier that I have someone that I know who does podcast and podcast training.
Yes.
And I'm on her newsletter list, and she sent out these tips, and she sent out a couple tips. And one of the tips that she sent out, I wrote her back, I said, great tip. She said, because you are speaking to what appears to be your computer, and that is it, unless you're on a Zoom call and you have a lot of people, or you're doing an interview and you're going back and forth as a guest,
Yes.
to take a picture, like I'm going to grab this. This is of me, right? But like, okay, like this is my son. Like, just take a picture of someone or like of your best friend, and then put that on your desktop. Like, you put that on your desktop so that you have a friendly face actually that
I'm
is
doing
looking
it.
back at you, right? Looking back at you.
So, what I would say to that too, well, first of all, we can segue into public speaking, which is different, of course, than theatrical performance. And I did 5 to 6 years of training as that segue between me being the performer and me being my most authentic self, speaking to the heart of an audience. This definitely requires eye contact, definitely requires encompassing the whole room, but also individuals at a time. And now in this age, I love that idea of putting the picture of a loved one. What I can do, I guess, from 25 years of really having to tap into my feelings and emotions and express myself on a regular basis is I can use my imagination. I really feel the people that are out there. Like, in my heart of hearts, I can sense the excitement of an audience even just now.
Yes, that they're actually alive people, that those that are listening, and that you can actually feel them and connect to them, and know they're coming from all different parts of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And how phenomenal it is that this device that we have gives us the ability to do this, instead of thinking like, I don't have live events, I love being in front of live people, to say. And you see it even now, like with I guess some of the sports, they put the audiences in, and they did that, with the Democratic convention. They showed, like, it's almost like Hollywood Squares, right? With people in the background. That's really being creative, but to kind of, get that feeling. But you're saying that we can bring up that feeling, just to kind of just bring that feeling in, and really remember that there are people, and you get to actually connect to them.
Yeah, and this is one of the most important, like, this would be my first tip to anyone, not in preparing themselves in their talk, but once they hit the stage or hit the computer, right? Turn on the camera, do a live video, whatever, however it is that you're communicating with your audience. I would say that that's probably always my first tip. And the first bit of research that I do is know yourself, know your audience. This to me is such a privilege, like to be with you, because I love you and I love your work, but to be with an audience is a privilege, that someone will stop in their life and listen to you because they're seeking something and they believe you might have it for them. That is what's foremost in my mind. I think that removes a lot of the glossophobia, they call it, the fear of public speaking. When you think of yourself as a servant leader, I'm here as a thought leader to give some sort of gift or value to this audience, all of a sudden it's not about me. I forget myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I just come back to the reason why, the why and your mission is so important. I remember working in corporate America, and they would start every meeting with sharing the company's values and their mission and their vision statement. And because when we drop in our heart, then our heart opens, and then we can be authentic and have a deeper connection with our listeners. So you say that so beautifully.
Well, the trick question that I was in the audience for one time with another public speaking coach who is also a world champion of public speaking, literally. He competed all the way to the level of world champion of public speaking. Darren, I'll give a shout out to Darren LaCroix. He's worth it. He's amazing at his work, and he's a really fun speaker who started as a comedian. And he opened up a talk to professional speakers and speakers in the making, and he said, when you hit the stage, do you care about what you look like? Like, raise your hand if you care. Of course, the majority of us got caught in that web. We're like, yeah, of course. Like, you want to look nice for your audience. And he's like, wrong. Like, by the time you hit the stage and you are on and you are giving of yourself, what you look like is the last thing on your mind. Like, you get in the zone and you forget about it because it's not at the forefront of your mind, much less on your heart and soul.
Yeah, you're thinking about serving and sharing something that's going to make an impact for somebody that's listening, which is the whole philosophy around this podcast, redefine yourself during times of uncertainty, as we're thinking of different ways that we want to express ourselves in this new normal as we go forward in creating our future and stepping out in new ways and with bravery, hitting the go live button and testing it out and trying it out. And you've really stepped into that in hosting groups online and putting together Facebook groups and then doing Zoom groups and that sort of thing. So for someone who is new and they are getting up the confidence to actually do it, do you have a tip or something that you want to share for them to be able to actually do it?
As much as I do not tout memorization or reading from a script, I do believe and know for certain that preparation is key. And I don't mean preparation that makes you more nervous or pushes you into self-doubt and questioning yourself. I mean very simply, literally sitting down and saying, who am I? What have I got for them? Why does it matter? And how can they get it? That's like the formula, right?
Yeah.
It's simple. And I don't always follow that formula anymore because I have a level of comfort on coming live impromptu, on being very conversational, but it makes it very easy if you're prepared. And I would also say that the fun thing is that you can record yourself on Zoom. So if you have a free Zoom account, I say turn it on, start a meeting, just you, and do your first live and record it. And as much as you say, oh, I don't want to look at myself on camera, I don't know, this may not work for you, but I have seen it work for so many people because you get to break the ice and nobody's seeing it but you. You can actually show it to your coach, your trusted friend, your spouse, whoever will honor you with their time, and they can give you some constructive feedback. But basically, it's who are you? What have you got? Why does it matter? How can somebody reach out to you or get what it is you have for them? Like you said, whether you're the sandwich shop down the street and you're just saying we have takeout, we want so much to continue serving our neighborhood, or you're a thought leader that's saying this is my message. So yeah, the who, what, why, how is a really easy formula. Prepare it ahead of time and then just go on and introduce yourself.
I remember you're bringing back like the teleconferences. Like, I know that's how I started out with doing the teleconferences. And the first time I was asked to do one, that I actually typed everything out and then I put it all around the walls. But the cool thing about the teleconference, though, like no one actually saw you, so you could actually be reading it.
You make me think of something. Post-its are my friend, or index cards, or even cue cards. If you
I
have
have a
long
post-it. I have a post-it.
yeah.
It's not
So,
about us today, but I have a post-it
oh,
right now.
no. So if it's, for example, today I want to talk about the top 3 tips to becoming in-demand virtual speaker. And so I would think about what are those? And I would put them here if I couldn't remember them. I have the actor's memory, so I can pretty much like bullet point it for myself and know it. But if you need your notes, it's great. Put them right next to your camera, because my hands are there right now and you can't see them. And if I moved my eyes from there to there to there just to read those notes, no one would be the wiser. Teleprompting is happening, like you mentioned, the convention. All those speeches are teleprompted. And to me,
True.
sometimes they sound like they're reading. I suggest for new speakers bullet points. Know your main point,
Yes.
know your 3 sub points, and know what stories you want to tell in those 3 points, because storytelling is the only way. Your audience will probably not remember a lot of what, like even now, what we say, but they'll remember, oh my God, she used to do the twist in front of the Ed Sullivan Show. Wait, she doesn't look that old. Stories are what impact us, and what we remember. It's an ancestral gene we have to want stories and to remember stories.
Yeah, I remember. It's interesting because you're right. We think in stories, and then we share in stories, and we remember in stories. And I remember the first time I was starting to pay attention to a speaker because I had become a speaker. So now I'm in the audience, and I am listening to the speaker differently than I had before. And he puts up a whiteboard, and I'm like, I love that idea. He's got a whiteboard. He's kind of got like a cheat sheet. It's like one of these big Post-its. He's got a whiteboard.
Giant Post-it.
So he has a whiteboard, and he has an acronym going down, like and it, like, I don't know, I'm going to make up the word. I don't remember the word, but let's say the word is align, right? ALIGN, and then he starts with A, and it's like awareness or something right there. And then and I was like, wow, that is such a great way that you sort of have something right next to you. And then from that point on, like, I started teaching using acronym. I don't really do it so much anymore. I mean, every now and then I do.
Sure,
right? Why not?
I have a couple of them, like they work and people remember them. You just also made me think that as we speak about speaking and we speak about expressing ourselves in front of others, even if it's virtually, right? It makes me think that it's not one size fits all. And I had this very clear idea, I'm very spiritual, as you know, like you. I have my rituals and practices of yoga, meditation, journaling, and all the things that just keep me connected to source and to my true essence. And this is very important because it's not a one size fits all tips for speakers. There are some of you listening who are already out there live and on Zoom and doing virtual speaking engagements, and you want to go next level. And then there's some of you who just are terrified and have never done it. And what might work for either person, whether you consider yourself an advanced and professional or nearly professional speaker or a beginner, is this connection to yourself. When you really take the time on a regular basis, it's like dealing with crisis and uncertainty. It's like doing a marathon. When you have prepared yourself for whatever life is going to bring or take away, then you can handle any situation. And so my suggestion is connect with your heart of hearts. Take a deep breath and think about what is on my mind and heart, and turn on that camera and share that, because that is what's going to connect with people. Empathy, vulnerability, and authenticity. The credibility part, this big message you've got, this brand that you want to get out there, is not as important as this connection, like you said so beautifully, to your why and your purpose that's already in your heart of hearts. And I think the way that you find that is tell your stories. And at first, it means elimination or cleansing, I like to call it. Tell your war stories. And you're going to start to see a thread and a pattern throughout your life. And you're going to figure out, because I've been there, if you're at all like me, which is human, right? You're going to figure out what matters most to me and what's the biggest, like, top 3 lessons that I've learned. What matters the most And what do I really know? And then you don't need a script, right? You're saying, this is
Yeah.
what matters. And the reason it matters is because this is what I went through and this is what I learned. And then you're done and you're not having to memorize and get all worked up. Does
And
that?
people feel you. They feel your experience as you're visually having it, the experience again in your body as you're sharing it. People then feel that authentic connection to you and it becomes so real. We don't even like something that's all pretty and polished up. We kind of like it when it's a little real and raw and kind of spontaneous and
Because it's relatable. It's so
yeah.
relatable. And that's how we connect as humans, is that life is messy and we're all trying to make the best of this journey, this process that we're in. And then those of us that have that calling to guide others to get into that too, and have the processes to make it a little bit, make the journey just maybe a little easier, a little more clear, then that's what we're called to do. And we do it. It's so fun. I have a great time doing this kind of thing. I just love it. Yeah. So,
So in this moment,
yeah.
I was going to invite us just to take a pause, like a powerful pause here for a moment, because that makes people feel super uncomfortable. And yet it's so powerful. And you talked about being able to connect, right? And be able to actually feel like if you're listening to this, like whatever is coming up for you as Maritza is sharing these beautiful ideas and ways to embrace your message and to share it authentically. So I have to ask this, do you add in props? Do you add in movement? And I know as a dancer, you probably, incorporate a few little elements in the background. Do you do that when you're doing something virtually?
I think you can do that when you're doing something virtually. I have been known lately, because I am a nut for books. You're not seeing it in this room because the shelf is on the other side, but so I end up holding up books. So you can see that I read Daily Om this morning, and I was talking about a new community coaching effort that just came to me during a lunch and learn yesterday. And so, messy notes, here they are. So yes, it really does help. So I have found that even when I haven't like scripted it in, I was giving a keynote for KPMG the other day. And I had the books that I was referring to around me. And, I was showing them as I was telling them, oh, you must read Bring Your Whole Self to Work by Mike Robbins, because it will change the way you show up at work. And it's really what my holistic coaching process is about, right? So yes to props. And the other question you asked was movement. So for me, I'm a Latina. I speak Spanish first. Some people don't know that if they don't know me. And I'm married to an Italian. So speaking with my hands is completely natural to me. Like, I don't have to think about it. It just happens, whether you can see my hands on camera or not. And I think what's happening on Zoom a little bit, I also believe in the power of the pause. It's very, very important. And what's happening on Zoom a little bit is that we sit too far from the camera. You can tell that Wendy and I have both chosen to be like chest up. This is really the best place if you are the guest speaker. When I want to give the attention more to other people speaking in a Zoom conference or a mastermind, I tend to place my camera a little further away from me, or I tend to sit back and completely relax so they can take what we call center stage. So your proximity, your spatial orientation to an audience is really important live, but it's also important on Zoom. You can decide how close you want your camera. I have a tripod and I have done some speeches virtually standing up, because in that particular topic or in how I was feeling, I thought it would be important for them to get the feeling like they were
It
watching.
changes it. It totally changes the energy when you stand up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've even asked audiences to stand with me. I was playing one of my theme songs and dancing, and they were enjoying that. And I was like, no, please get out of your seat. Some of them moved their camera back, some of them didn't. We could see
Yeah,
from chest
yeah,
to hips. It didn't matter. But
yeah.
like you said, that makes a big difference. I would say to props, I take a pause on that. I would say always what you want is what feels most organic. If something feels contrived, if you feel like a social mask, now that we wear masks, right? I think a lot of us, particularly in corporate settings, but anywhere in the world, we are very buttoned up and we're wearing a social mask. And I think that's why working with a coach like Wendy and myself and anyone out there that you feel called to be with is about unmasking yourself. So if the prop is natural, this is how much water I drink, 3 of these a day. That's funny. And it's also true. And it's also of value to the audience, right? So that's natural. But if you're like thinking I'm going to use this because somebody said I should, or, I should show the chart, it starts to feel contrived and uncomfortable. One of the things they used to teach us as performers, was to not be affected. Do you know, is that word used that way still? Like, don't have affectations, put ons. How true can you be to yourself and to the people that you're with? You don't want to put on. Even as a performer, when you watch something on Broadway, sometimes you're attracted to a particular person. Even though you want to see all the dancers or all the singers, you keep going back to that person.
True, it's true. Yeah.
And that is the law of attraction. That's magnetism. That's what I call in leadership irresistibility. You can be irresistible when you're your most, I even call it naked self on stage sometimes. I say, oh, I'm wearing this fancy red dress, but I'm about to get naked, meaning I'm going to show you my heart and soul. I'm going to tell you a little bit of my war story because I'm going to give you a journey to go on of it used to be this way. It can be very different. And this is how you get there. You want to take people on a journey. It's like a movie. Yeah.
Yeah. It is like a movie that you see the struggle and then we fall in love with the character and we're rooting for the character. And then we see how they get through it. And then we learn some lessons, our takeaways.
Exactly.
And then we hope to see a happy ending. Or a sequel,
or right? A beginning of a. Because sometimes the happiness isn't the end; it's actually the beginning, right?
Yeah, or the sequel, or that is the next chapter. So yeah, that really makes sense because a lot of people are making these decisions, and I know I did. Like, how am I setting up my office? I mean, I just did things that I love in here. Sometimes I'm in other parts of the house as well. But all of those things like sound matters and light matters and all of those things and what you wear, that you're comfortable, that you're sitting in a comfortable chair and all of those things. And you always seem like so comfortable. I'll see you in different parts of your house. You're obviously in the main part of your house right now, which looks like lovely because you feel like you're actually in somebody's home and you get to know them like a little bit differently. You feel like you get to see them behind the scenes.
Exactly. Yesterday someone mentioned something really powerful that was attending my lunch and learn at Venture X West Palm Beach. I'm not doing them in real life yet. Don't worry. Some people are, but I still feel comfortable. But they're so awesome to help because they have a big conference room and people that want to be there in real life are, and they're zooming us in, which is so nice. But I digress. The reason I say that is because I have offered to have a virtual background, and I am going to warn against those, even though some of you may have no choice but to have them, and they do serve a purpose. If you're using them, move a lot less. So as opposed to me saying, use your hands, move around, be natural, when that happens on a virtual background, it does that funny thing where you disappear and you become two-dimensional. And so I offered to use one. Someone made me a beautiful one. And there are occasions where they're going to say, yes, please use your virtual background with your branding, your logo on it. But for the most part, I would say as long as the area behind you is not cluttered, and it really says that you are comfortable in your home and these are the things you love. I love that you said that. Then go for it. It doesn't have to look so corporate in a way, or so professional. KPMG had the option to have me with a logo and theirs or my living room, and they chose the living room.
Yeah, I really that's what I love so much about the podcast feel or the YouTubing feel, because I'm talking to people all around the world. I was on with somebody earlier today. I was on their podcast. They're in London, just people all around the world. And it just gives like this breath of fresh air to have the kind of space, like whatever the space is, like that is sometimes unbranded and more natural, and also sometimes on the fly. So these are just amazing, wonderful tips that you can apply right away. I've learned so much from you today, Maritza, and thank you so much for being on. I will have all of your contact information, your local but online, all around the world, how to be in touch with you. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you so much for watching. And Wendy, it always is a pleasure. It was a pleasure to chat with you about this. Really fun.
You as well.